Imagine you're in a conversation and someone offers a mild critique of your work. Objectively, it's nothing harsh, maybe even helpful, but inside you feel your blood boil. You feel attacked, dismissed, even humiliated. You bite back with a sharp retort or withdraw in silence. What just happened? Why did such a small comment unleash such a powerful wave of emotion? The answer often lies beneath the surface, in memories that haven't healed. Maybe as a child you were constantly told you weren't good enough, criticized no matter how hard you tried. So now, as an adult, even gentle feedback feels like a threat to your worth. The past is no longer in the past. It's here, influencing how you feel, how you react, how you see the world. This is the power of emotional triggers. They are not rational. They bypass logic and strike at the heart of your emotional wounds. And unless you understand them, they will continue to control you, leading you to overreact, to sabotage relationships, and to misinterpret situations based on old pain. But when you start to recognize your triggers for what they are, echoes, not truths, you open a door to something extraordinary. You begin to reclaim your power. You begin to see that your emotions are messengers, not masters. They are not here to dominate you. They are here to teach you. This self-recognition isn't always easy. It asks you to look at the moments when you feel the most out of control, and instead of blaming the world or the people around you, it asks you to turn inward. It asks you to examine why you react the way you do. Why does that particular word cut so deep? Why does being left out feel like a personal betrayal? Why does disagreement feel like rejection? These questions are not comfortable. They pull at your defenses and strip away the stories you tell yourself to stay safe. But in this discomfort is your greatest opportunity for growth. When you can pause and ask, what is this really about? You start to understand that the present situation is just the surface. Underneath is a lifetime of experiences, feelings, and unmet needs that are still calling out to be seen, to be heard, to be healed. And when you answer that call, not with judgment but with compassion, you begin to change the entire pattern. You begin to teach yourself that you are not helpless in the face of your emotions. You have the ability to meet them with awareness, to pause, to reflect, and to respond from a place of strength rather than hurt. One of the most effective ways to begin this process is to journal about the moments when you feel emotionally overwhelmed. Write down what happened, how you felt, and what it reminded you of. You may start to see patterns. Maybe it's always when you feel dismissed, or when someone questions your decisions, or when you're around a certain person. These aren't coincidences, they're clues. They point you toward the parts of yourself that are still tender, still waiting for acknowledgement. And once you see the pattern, you can begin to prepare. You can enter situations with greater awareness, reminding yourself that the emotion may be real, but it may not be about what's happening right now. This separation of past from present is one of the most empowering shifts you can make. It gives you a sense of control, not over others or over life itself, but over how you choose to experience it, over how you choose to interpret the moments that once triggered you into spirals of overreaction. You begin to feel your emotions rise, and instead of being swept away, you breathe, you pause, you listen to what the emotion is trying to tell you, and then you decide what happens next. The power lies in that pause, in the space between stimulus and response, between feeling and reacting. There is a sliver of time where transformation can occur. Most people skip this step. They feel hurt and immediately lash out. They feel anger and instantly explode. They feel fear and quickly retreat. But when you train yourself to pause, to simply wait a moment, take a breath, ask a question, you break the automatic cycle of reaction. This isn't about suppressing your feelings or pretending everything is fine. It's about giving yourself just enough space to let the emotion rise and settle without letting it control your next move. Emotions are like waves. They build quickly, but they also pass, if you let them. If you don't feed them with reactive thoughts or behaviors, they lose their grip. That's why even something as simple as counting to 5 or taking 3 deep breaths can change everything. It's not the breath itself that's magic. It's what it represents. The choice to respond with awareness rather than habit. And when you practice this over and over, it becomes your default. You build emotional muscle. You start to trust yourself more. You become someone who can sit with discomfort without being consumed by it. This doesn't just change how you feel, it changes how others feel around you. When you become someone who doesn't overreact, who listens more than they lash out, who holds space instead of judgment, you become a stabilizing force in a world that often feels chaotic. People begin to feel safer around you. Conversations become deeper. Conflicts resolve more peacefully. And most importantly, you begin to trust yourself more. You start to see that you don't have to be at the mercy of your emotional triggers. You are capable of recognizing them, understanding them, and choosing a different path. This is not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming emotionally wise. It's about using every trigger as a teacher and every reaction as an opportunity to grow. And slowly, moment by moment, breath by breath, you start to transform. Not just your reactions, but your entire relationship with yourself and the world around you. Think of a moment when someone said something that caught you off guard, not because it was cruel or inappropriate, but because it pierced a place inside you that you didn't know was still sore. Maybe they questioned your decision and you instantly felt like your worth was being challenged. Maybe they interrupted you and you felt invisible. These moments don't just stir emotion, they wake up old pain. They drag the past into the present so quickly, you don't even realize it's happening. But here's the truth. The present isn't attacking you. It's simply mirroring back to you what still needs healing. And recognizing that shift, knowing when you're reacting to the now versus reacting to the past, is the difference between staying stuck and stepping into emotional freedom. When you start seeing these moments not as threats, but as signals, everything changes. You don't have to fight them. You don't have to fear them. You just have to listen. Your reactions aren't random, they're roadmaps. And if you follow them with curiosity and kindness, they'll lead you right to the places in yourself that are asking for love, for understanding, for change. Once you understand that emotional triggers come from within, you realize something powerful. Other people are not responsible for your overreactions. That might feel hard to accept at first, especially when it seems like someone else's behavior caused your outburst. But the truth is, your emotions are yours. They rise within you, shaped by your past, your beliefs, your patterns. And that's not a burden, it's a blessing. Because if your reactions come from you, then the power to change them lies with you too. You're not waiting on the world to treat you differently. You're learning to treat yourself differently, and that's where true emotional maturity begins. Not in controlling everything around you, but in mastering the space within you. That's why emotional awareness is not weakness, it's strength. It's the kind of strength that doesn't need to shout, doesn't need to defend, doesn't need to win. It simply knows itself, and in that knowing, it finds peace. One of the most misunderstood parts of emotional growth is the pause. People think it means holding back or bottling up, but that's not it at all. The pause is not suppression, it's preparation. It's the sacred space where you gather yourself, where you choose how to show up, where you decide whether you'll repeat the past or create something new. It can be just a second long, but in that second, entire futures are born or destroyed. That's how powerful it is. The pause gives you time to breathe, and in that breath you can ask questions like, is this reaction going to help or hurt? Am I responding to what's actually happening or to what I fear is happening? What does my best self want to say right now? These are not just calming thoughts, they are anchors. They pull you out of the storm of emotion and back into the clarity of intention. And when you make it a habit to pause, you begin to notice something remarkable. The world around you starts to shift too. People respond differently. Conflicts de-escalate. Conversations deepen. Why? Because when you bring peace, you invite peace. When you bring calm, you create calm. That's the ripple effect of inner work. Practicing the pause in low-stakes moments is the key to mastering it in high-stakes ones. Start with everyday interactions. Before replying to a text that annoys you, breathe. Before reacting to a coworker's comment, breathe. Before correcting a loved one, breathe. These moments seem small, but they are training your nervous system, your mind, your entire being to respond. not react. And each time you choose the pause, you strengthen the muscle of self-control. It's like weightlifting for your emotions. At first it's hard, you might mess up. You'll have moments where you still lash out, still spiral. That's okay. Growth isn't about never falling, it's about catching yourself sooner each time. It's about noticing the storm as it brews and choosing to take shelter instead of letting it sweep you away. And over time, the pause becomes your power. Not because you're withholding yourself, but because you're anchoring yourself in something deeper than the emotion of the moment. You're anchored in choice, in values, in awareness. That's not passive. That's active leadership of the self. As you practice this, you'll start to see the space between stimulus and response as sacred. It's not empty, it's full of wisdom, full of grace, full of opportunity. And the more you live in that space, the more you realize how much you used to give away. You gave away your peace for the sake of being right. You gave away your clarity for the thrill of immediate reaction. You gave away your power by thinking others were responsible for how you felt. But now you're reclaiming all of it, not by force, not by control, but by attention, by gently watching your inner world and tending to it with care. This is not about being perfect. You'll still feel anger, sadness, fear. That's human. But now, you'll meet those feelings with curiosity instead of panic. You'll say, I see you, I understand where you come from, but I choose how I act. And that choice, that moment of conscious direction, is what transforms reactivity into mastery. Something else begins to happen when you pause consistently. You start hearing your deeper self more clearly. Beneath the surface emotions, beneath the noise of the mind, there's a quiet wisdom that knows exactly what you need. Sometimes it tells you to speak up. Sometimes it tells you to let go. Sometimes it tells you to rest. But it always tells you the truth. And when you live from that place, you stop chasing validation. Stop defending every thought. Stop reacting to every bump in the road. You begin to walk through life with a sense of inner steadiness. Like no matter what's happening around you, there's a part of you that remains rooted, grounded, and clear. This is what the pause protects. This is what it gives you access to. Not just better reactions, but a better relationship with yourself. And when your relationship with yourself is strong, every other part of your life begins to align. When the pause becomes a part of your everyday life, your mind begins to change too. The stories it once told with intensity, stories of rejection, betrayal, not being good enough, begin to lose their grip. That's because you're no longer accepting every thought as fact. You've started asking better questions. You've begun to realize that not every thought deserves your belief. The mind is quick to jump to conclusions, especially when triggered. But what if, instead of believing the first thought that shows up, you paused and asked, what else could this mean? Maybe they weren't trying to insult you. Maybe they weren't ignoring you. Maybe their silence isn't rejection, it's just silence. This habit of inquiry creates mental spaciousness. Instead of being trapped in emotional stories, you open the door to perspective. You invite in reason, compassion, and possibility. And with time, this practice rewires your response system. Instead of spiraling into worst-case scenarios, your mind becomes a place of grounding, a place of calm questioning rather than chaotic assuming. You begin to live with more curiosity than judgment. When someone doesn't call back, you don't automatically think they don't care. You wonder if they're okay. When someone makes a blunt comment, you don't assume malice. You wonder what might be going on in their day. This shift from assumption to awareness changes how you relate to others. It creates space for empathy, patience, and understanding. And that doesn't mean you let people mistreat you. It means you stop letting your mind invent stories that hurt you more than the situation ever could. Emotional overreaction often starts in the mind long before it reaches the body. It begins with a sentence you say to yourself. They never listen to me. I always mess things up. Nobody respects me. These absolutes, always, never, nobody, are emotional amplifiers. They turn small wounds into massive injuries. They take a passing discomfort and turn it into a full-blown narrative. But when you become aware of this pattern, you can interrupt it. You can say, hold on, is that really true? Just asking that simple question starts to loosen the grip of emotional distortion. When you practice this enough, you begin to build trust. not just with others, but within yourself. You trust that you can feel something intense without falling apart. You trust that your thoughts don't control you. You trust that even when emotions flare up, you can navigate them with presence and wisdom. This internal trust is one of the most stabilizing new one, because it not having allowed that time. There comes a point on this journey where the moments of emotional intensity no longer scare you. You don't dread them or try to avoid them. You meet them. You see them for what they are. Message, not threats. Warnings, not punishments. These emotions, even the heavy ones, are simply parts of you that were messaging want to be seen. They rise up not to destroy your peace, but to bring your attention to where healing is needed. And the more you respond with presence instead of panic, the more they begin to soften. You realize that every surge of anger, every pang of sadness, every wave of anxiety is an opportunity to come home to yourself, to sit with what's real, to listen with compassion, and to respond with care. This is the shift from emotional reactivity to emotional wisdom. It doesn't mean you never feel upset again. It means your upset no longer owns you. You're still the one in charge, and when you're in charge, your relationships begin to transform. You stop projecting your pain onto others. You stop expecting people to fix what they didn't break. You start owning your emotional world and creating safer spaces for others to do the same. You communicate more clearly. You ask for what you need without blaming. You hold space for others without absorbing their chaos. You stop trying to control everything and instead become a steady, compassionate presence, even in difficult conversations. This kind of presence doesn't come from knowing all the right words. It comes from knowing yourself, from being so familiar with your own patterns and wounds that you can navigate them with grace rather than fear. And the people around you feel it. They sense the difference. They trust you more, not because you're perfect, but because you're real, because you're responsive, not reactive. This inner transformation also touches the way you move through everyday life. Minor inconveniences don't derail your day. Unexpected changes don't shatter your calm. You stop overanalyzing every interaction. You stop jumping to conclusions. You begin to live with a quiet confidence, a sense that no matter what arises, you can handle it. Because you've faced your triggers and lived to tell the story. Because you've walked through emotional storms and stayed standing. Because you've chosen pause over panic, clarity over confusion, reflection over reaction. This is the kind of strength that doesn't come from resisting your emotions, but from respecting them. Not being ruled by them, but learning from them. Not avoiding them, but embracing them as part of your human experience. The truth is, emotional control isn't about becoming someone else. It's about returning to who you were before life taught you to overreact, before past wounds shaped your defenses, before insecurity built walls around your heart. It's about unlearning the habits of emotional survival and replacing them with the habits of emotional wisdom. It's about remembering that you are not your reaction. You are the awareness behind it. You are not your trigger. You are the calm that sees it. You are not your pain. You are the presence that holds it. When you live from this place, you no longer fear strong emotions. You welcome them. You learn from them. You grow through them. So the next time you feel the heat rising in your chest, the sharp words forming on your tongue, the tightness in your fists, pause. Breathe. Remember that you have a choice. You can let the moment pass through you without letting it define you. You can be both honest and gentle, both vulnerable and strong. You can speak your truth without wounding others. You can stay rooted in your values, even when emotions try to pull you off course. Every time you choose this path, you reinforce the neural pathways of emotional strength. You make it easier to choose wisely next time. You build a legacy, not just for yourself, but for everyone your presence touches. Because when you choose to stop overreacting, you don't just create peace for yourself. You become a source of peace for others. And finally, let this be your reminder. Emotional mastery is not perfection. It's progress. It's falling back into old patterns sometimes, but catching yourself sooner each time. It's learning to apologize, to forgive, to reflect, and to begin again. It's a journey, not a destination. And on this journey, every pause is a victory. Every breath is a breakthrough. Every moment of awareness is a gift. You are not broken, you are becoming. And the more you honor this process, the more you awaken a strength within you that cannot be shaken by temporary emotions. This strength is who you truly are, calm, centered, and beautifully human. When you begin to truly understand your emotions, not as enemies to suppress, but as messages waiting to be heard, you start to reclaim the power they once held over you. Overreacting doesn't make you weak. It simply reveals the parts of you still yearning to be healed. Each pause you take, each breath you choose before speaking, becomes an act of self-respect and quiet strength. With time and practice, control no longer feels like a battle. It becomes your nature. You're no longer a passenger to emotional storms, but the steady captain steering through them. And in that space between emotion and action, you don't just find peace, you rediscover yourself.